Hello my dear children, welcome to your science class. I hope all of you have watched our last class. Last class we have learned about function of leaves and teacher have taught you about the most attractive part of a plant, that is a flower. And I know, as teacher told, all of you may be ready at your home with a hibiscus flower to study more about parts of flower. Teacher also have brought the flowers to the class. So I welcome you students to your science class. Let's start our today's topic, that is part of flower. Flower is attached to the stem with a stalk called pedicel. So in this plant also the flower is attached with the help of pedicel. So children, as we have learned in last class, flower is attached to the stem with a stalk called pedicel. Here in hibiscus flower, this stalk part is called a pedicel, and the uppermost part of the stalk is somewhat swollen. This region you can see a swollen region. So this area is a swollen region, and this area is called thalamus. All other part of the flower is attached, is arranged, say ring, in this thalamus region. And we learned the flowers without pedicel is called sessile flowers. And in today's class we are going to learn about other parts of flower. They are sepals, petals, stamen and pistil. So we are going to learn about 4 parts of flower, that is sepals, petals, stamen, and pistil. So the 4 parts of flowers are sepals, petals, stamen and pistil. Now let's learn about the first part, that is sepals. Sepals are the green leaf-like parts in the outermost circle of a flower. The function of sepals is protect the flower during bud stage. So the first part is a sepal. Sepal is a green leaf-like portion on the outer circle of a flower. And the function of sepal is to protect the flower during bud stage. Now let's learn the second part, that is petals. We see the flowers in different colors, isn't it? So the bright colored part of the flowers is called petals. They are brightly colored due to the presence of colored pigment. And these colored petals attract the insects that helps in the pollination. And we will learn about pollination later in this chapter. So the second part, that is petals, and they are colored due to the presence of colored pigment. They are brightly colored in order to attract the insects for pollination. Children, in this flower, this green leaf-like structure is what we call sepal. The function of this sepal is to protect the flower during bud stage, and this red colored structures are called petals. A hibiscus flower has 5 petals. The function of this petal is to attract the insects for pollination. They are colored due to the presence of color pigments. Now let's learn about the third part of a flower, that is a stamen. Stamens are found inside the petals of a flower. They are usually 4 to 6 in numbers, and these stamens are male reproductive organs. Stamens are male reproductive organs. So the male reproductive organ of a flower is called stamens. Children, let's learn about stamen. Stamens are seen inside the They are usually 4 to 6 in numbers. Stamens are male reproductive part of a flower. Stamens are male reproductive part of a flower. Stamens are male reproductive part of a flower, and here teacher have drawn a picture of a stamen. That is, each stamen consists of a stalk called filament and a head called anther, and this anther is two-lobed. That means anther has two lobes. So each stamen consists of a stalk called filament and it has a head called anther. Anthers are two-lobed or bilobed in nature. And here teacher have drawn an anther, that is, it is two-lobed in nature, and inside the anther there are pollen sacs, and these pollen sacs contain pollen grains. These pollen grains are the male sex cells. Pollen grains are male sex cells. Pollen grains are male sex cells. Yes, so what we learned is about stamens. Stamens are the male reproductive part of a flower, and stamen has two parts. First one is a stalk-like region and it is called filament. Second region is head region and it is called anther. And this anther, teacher have represented the anther here. Each anther is two-lobed in nature. You can see here two lobes, isn't it? Two lobes, and inside the anther there are pollen. There are two pollen sacs. Pollen sac means you can consider this pollen sacs as pollen bags. Okay. So this pollen sacs contain pollen grains inside. Pollen grains are usually yellow in color, and these pollen grains are the male sex cells. So anther contain pollen sacs and pollen sacs contain pollen grains. These pollen grains are male sex cells. So that is all about the third part, that is stamens. Children, in this hibiscus flower you can see the stamens. This yellow part is called the stamens. You can see the stamens are attached to the flower with a stalk called filaments. As teacher have told, a stamen has a filament and an anther. So here you can see the filament and the anther, and inside the anther there will be yellow pollen grains. Those pollen grains, when you dust on the paper, you can see yellow color pollen grains. I am not sure whether you can see it or not. There are yellow pollen grains. Okay, children. Now we have learnt three parts of a flower. Next is the fourth part, and it is called pistil. Fourth part is called pistil. Pistil is seen in the central region of a flower and it is seen in flask shape. Pistil is the female reproductive organ of a flower. Pistil is female reproductive organ. So children, which is the male reproductive organ of a flower? Yes, stamen. And pistil is the female reproductive organ of a flower. Pistil also consists of three regions. They are stigma, style and ovary. Pistil consists of stigma, style and ovary. So teacher have just draw the structure of pistil. That is, the upper portion of the pistil is called stigma. The solen base of the pistil is called ovary. And the middle tube-like region is called style. So the pistil is the female reproductive organ. It consists of three parts. They are stigma, style and ovary. The uppermost region of the pistil is called stigma. The lower solen region is called ovary. And the middle tube-like region is called style. The function of the style is to connect the stigma to the ovary. So these are the four parts of a flower. So students, here when you open a flower, you can find the pistil. The red color region here is called as stigma. The solen part inside the central region of the flower is called ovary. And the part connecting this stigma and ovary is called style. Here you can see a white tube which connect the ovary and stigma. This region is called a style. Teacher will just remove the petals and other parts and show you this pistil. So children, this is the pistil of hibiscus flower. Here you can see the stigma, the style which connect the stigma and ovary, and the solen part called ovary. And dear children, I hope you have understood the four parts of the flower, that is sepals, petals, stamen and pistil. Teacher have also brought a model of hibiscus flower where you can see all these parts. First we learned about sepals. This region is marked as sepals and its function is to protect the flower during bud stage. Second part we studied was petals, and this colored portion is called petals. Teacher have marked here as petals. Now the third region we studied was stamens, and stamens, this region is stamens. Orange region or this yellow region is marked as stamens. Stamens, we learned the stamens consist of two parts, that is filament and anther. Anther contains two lobed pollen sacs, and these pollen sacs contain pollen grains. These pollen grains are called male sex cells. And also stamens are known as male reproductive organs. And at last the fourth part we studied, that is pistil, and we learned the parts of pistil, that is stigma, style and ovary. This region is a stigma region, and this solen region is called ovary, and the tube which connect the stigma and ovary is style. And pistil is called the female reproductive organ. And here also I have marked ovules. Ovules are seen inside the ovary, and this function of this, and these ovules are the female reproductive cell. So pollen grain are the male reproductive cells, whereas ovules are the female reproductive cell of a flower. And also I have marked the thalamus region, that is a disc-like region which we studied in the last class. I hope by this all of you have understood the parts of a flower. Now let's summarize what we have learned in today's class with a video.
Of a flower. The main parts of a flower are pedicel, sepals, petals, stamens, pistil. Pedicel. The flower is attached to the stem by a stalk called pedicel. The uppermost part of the stalk is somewhat swollen. This swollen part of the pedicel is known as thalamus. Sepals. The green leaf-like parts in the outermost circle of a flower are called sepals. They protect the flower during the bud stage. Petals. These are usually brightly colored due to the presence of colored pigments. The bright colored petals serve to attract insects. These insects in turn help in pollination. Stamens. They are found just inside the petals of the flower. They are usually 4 to 6 in numbers. The stamen is the male reproductive part of a flower. Each stamen consists of a thin stalk called filament and a two-lobed head called the anther. Each anther tube has 2 pollen sacs that are filled with pollen grains. Pollen grains are a yellow powdery substance. They contain the male sex cells of the flowering plant. Pistil. In the center of a flower, there is a flask-shaped organ called pistil. The pistil is the female reproductive part of a flower. Each pistil consists of an ovary, style, and stigma.
Dear children, next class onwards we are starting our revision for half-yearly exam. The portions for your half-yearly exam is till chapter 6. That means the 6th chapter, changes around us, is also included. So from next class onwards we will start our revision. We will revise your first and second chapter, that is source of food and components of food. Children, for the next class kindly be prepared for the revision. And if you have any doubts regarding today's class, that is about the parts of flower, kindly comment and ask. Feel free to ask the doubts. See you in next class. Thank you.